Here is the passage rewritten with richer, more varied language that goes deeper into the examples and explanations, while preserving the original content and numbering. First, people who live in false realities. At the heart of the human experience, there are those among us who veer into realms of falsehood, constructing alternate realities for themselves. Such individuals, steeped in self-authored narratives, cling to illusion as truth, weaving a fabric of deception to clothe their lives. Far from the Stoic pursuit of self-awareness and inner transparency, they opt to mask their insecurities and fears with comforting fantasies. These imaginative fabrications act as both haven and cage, where the true state of affairs is continuously reshaped to align with their personal hopes and whims. The Stoic ordeal of facing oneself with candor is forsaken, traded for the alluring ease of inhabiting a realm where inconvenient verities are shunned and only fantasies find welcome. It is a nuanced and hazardous waltz with actuality, where the stake is one's genuine self. Yet what transpires when the facades are stripped away and reality emerges in its stark form? Can these crafted delusions endure, or are we inevitably bound to confront the fears and avoidances we harbor? Pondering these ersatz realities is not merely a matter of idle curiosity, but a summons to acknowledge and reevaluate our own authenticities. It is a call to look past the charades and find the courage to live a life consonant with the tangible world, flaws and all. The Stoic sages teach that we must wrestle with our shortcomings in order to grow. The trouble with such souls is that their roots in make-believe narratives run so deep as to blind them to alternative viewpoints. They disregard the truth that our minds have the power to shape our experience of reality, filtering it through the prism of our emotions, rather than perceiving it in its raw form. More often than not, their behavior stems not from malice, but from a pattern of self-deception. Such conduct may originate from profound traumas or a desperate need for validation that warps their sense of what is real. These struggles may have driven them to spin a fantastical sanctuary as an emotional life raft. Attempting to help these individuals is a Herculean task, as they have erected formidable mental fortifications. Though you may try to enlighten them with facts, they parry with logic that crumbles under the weight of reality. In the face of glaring proof, they twist the evidence to fit their preferred fiction. True change is possible only if they admit the flaws in their reasoning, a journey that often requires the guidance of a skilled mental health practitioner. This mirrors the dynamics of modern political discourse, where people cling to ideologies, glossing over logical inconsistencies, and maintaining their righteous self-image, even when confronted with contradictions. The frequency and nature of their appeals are clear indicators of their true motives. Thus, as we navigate our interactions with others, it is imperative that empathy does not blind us to the reality of their intentions. We must marry the heart's generosity with the mind's discernment, ensuring that our compassion is not misplaced, but directed towards those who cherish and reciprocate it in equal measure. Some individuals possess an almost artistic flair for inducing guilt in others. Initially, they might extol your virtues, asking, "Could you do this for me, given that you're such a wonderful friend?" Seeking assistance occasionally is normal. But these individuals habitually request help, even in situations they could manage on their own. They do not respect the value of your time. It's a precarious predicament. As you find yourself yielding to their demands against your better judgment, they skillfully manipulate you into feeling culpable for refusing. And even after innumerable rescues, they remain unchanged, confident that someone will always be there to save them. It is wise to consider distancing yourself from these individuals without guilt. After all, your own well-being and obligations should be your top priority. Thirdly, the self-absorbed. There are those so deeply immersed in their own existence that they appear to believe the universe revolves around them. Self-worship is a perplexing and often exhausting facet of human nature. On life's journey, it is unavoidable to cross paths with those for whom the self is the axis around which all perceivable reality revolves. They are mired in the illusion that every event, every whisper of fate, resonates because of their presence. Imagine this scenario. You're sharing your exasperation about the city's chaotic traffic, and there stands the self-centered individual belittling your experience with a kind of nonchalant disdain, simply because they weren't caught in that gridlock labyrinth. Or when you're radiant with joy, sharing news of a newly acquired job, the same person swiftly casts a shadow over your good fortune, lamenting the stagnant trajectory of their own career. This behavior can be compared to emotional vampirism, where your energy and happiness are siphoned off to satiate the insatiable abyss of their needs and dramas. In what should be a dialogue, the conversation tilts into a monologue, where only the self-centered person's emotions and opinions seem to carry weight. Confronted with this reality, one ponders, is it worthwhile to remain beside someone so absorbed in themselves? And even more importantly, do we have the inner fortitude to insist that such an individual acknowledge and validate the feelings of others? It's crucial to recognize that no matter how much we dedicate ourselves to helping someone on the path of self-improvement, if the person in question is resistant to change, it's probable they will remain entrenched in their habits. Similarly, if we are on a journey of personal growth and those around us immerse us in negativity, they can undoubtedly become a hindrance to our advancement. In certain situations, wisdom lies in knowing when to protect oneself and possibly distance from those whose presence no longer enriches. Emotional self-defense in this context is not merely an option, but an essential strategy for psychological survival. Fourth, those who don't acknowledge their flaws. These individuals evade responsibility for their actions, never apologizing or admitting mistakes, demonstrating a deficiency in self-criticism and humility, virtues that philosophers like the Stoics champion as vital for personal development. For them, the blame always lies elsewhere, never with themselves. They might attribute a negative outcome to misfortune rather than seeking personal or external faults. They reside in a world where the reflection of their own actions seems distant and unattainable, a world where they are never the architects of their own misfortune. This perspective directly challenges Stoic teachings, which emphasize the significance of self-criticism and humility as foundational pillars for personal growth. The Stoics, with their unwavering clarity, instruct us to confront our own shortcomings with the same equanimity with which we accept the caprices of nature. As Seneca advises, we do not regard our vices as belonging to us in the same way we do not regard illnesses as part of our health. Therefore, when your mind rebels, remember that evil is not an absolute evil if you prevent it from being your master. Those who evade responsibility for their deeds exhibit a resistance to introspection, a refusal to acknowledge that imperfection is an inherent part of the human condition. The Stoics urge us to take full responsibility for our actions and to understand that error, when recognized and contemplated, is a powerful teacher. And in the face of failure, instead of looking for someone to blame, Stoic philosophy would counsel us to examine internal and external causes with equal measure. Epictetus, another great Stoic, highlights, it is not things that disturb us, but our interpretation of their significance. And in this context, the interpretation is clearly a denial of one's own contribution to the issue. When considering the possibility of assisting such individuals, it's crucial to recognize that genuine change can only occur when they are willing to engage in sincere self-reflection and take ownership of their role in the challenges they face. It is crucial to reflect on the words of Marcus Aurelius. The best revenge is not to be like that. Thus, we can understand that in certain situations, our energy might be better invested in self-improvement and the practice of Stoic virtue, rather than in attempting to change those who are unwilling. And finally, when we decide to distance ourselves, it is not with a heart heavy with resentment, but with the Stoic understanding that our inner peace and progress should not be compromised by others' obstinacy. As Epictetus reminds us, freedom is the only worthy goal we have, and sometimes true freedom means stepping back from those who are firmly anchored in their errors, choosing a path of self-awareness and serenity. Take charge of your life with the wisdom of history's greatest philosophers. Stoicism in the 21st century is your guide to resilience, well-being, and prosperity. Turn challenges into triumphs, stress into strength, uncertainty into clarity. Click now on the link in the pinned comment and begin your Stoic journey to a life of success and fulfillment. Get your ebook today. The fifth point raises a legitimate concern about those who do not prepare for the future, preferring to live in a perpetual state of contentment with the present. This outlook stands in stark contrast to Stoic principles, which, while valuing the importance of living in the here and now, also acknowledge the necessity of readying oneself for the future through mindful actions in the present. Stoicism teaches us to embrace and appreciate the present without overlooking the natural progression of things, including the inevitable passage of time and the transience of circumstances. Seneca, a notable Stoic, advised, "One must gather the whole soul to forecast the future, even as the whole soul is concentrated." That is, future readiness should be a natural extension of the focus and dedication we apply to the present. Seeing potential in others and wishing for them to see it in themselves is a reflection of human compassion. However, according to the Stoics, each person must be capable of recognizing and harnessing their own abilities. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, proclaimed that man's power over every event is akin in nature to the events themselves. This means we hold within us the power to shape our future through our current deeds. Encouraging someone to plan for the future doesn't entail denying anxiety or other difficult emotions, but understanding that they are part of the human experience. Stoicism doesn't promise the eradication of anxiety, but offers tools to manage it. Learning to live with these feelings without being overpowered by them is a challenge the Stoics urge us to undertake. Lastly, Epictetus reminds us that it's not the events that disturb us, but our interpretation of them. When we see someone with no plans for the future, we might interpret this lack of foresight as squandering potential. Nevertheless, it's crucial to acknowledge that each individual has their own timing and path for development. While we encourage and support others in their growth, we must also accept that the choice to plan or not for the future is personal and should be respected, always with the hope that in due time, each will find their way to progress. Sixth, those ensnared by pessimism. The sixth profile delves into a common quandary, the battle with chronic pessimism. Within the Stoic framework, such an attitude is counterproductive because Stoics espouse fostering a resilient mindset in the face of adversity, aiming not only for acceptance, but also for transforming negative perceptions into constructive ones. Seneca, one of the most prominent Stoic thinkers, counseled that we must learn from our experiences and use difficulties as opportunities for growth. He stated, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." This suggests that the hurdle lies not in the situations themselves, but in our hesitancy to face them with bravery and optimism. The text highlights a focus on the negative, which runs counter to the Stoic practice of rational and objective reflection on issues. For Stoics, the key to inner peace is realizing we can control our reactions to external events. Epictetus, another Stoic philosopher, emphasized that we should not fret over occurrences outside our control, but rather concentrate on how we respond to them. Furthermore, Stoic philosophy appreciates the calmness that comes with gratitude and acknowledging the positives in life. Even amid trials, Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself to view things with appreciation and find joy in the present. He wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." In dealing with individuals mired in pessimism, Stoic wisdom would suggest offering support while also safeguarding ourselves against being engulfed by their negativity. It is vital to understand that while empathy is a virtue, we cannot impose change upon others. Each person must desire transformation for themselves. Stoics teach us to invest our energy where it can have a positive impact. And sometimes this may mean preserving our own well-being, rather than endlessly attempting to alter someone's outlook. Consequently, it might be wiser to direct our efforts towards those open and willing to embrace a more balanced and optimistic worldview, those who, in keeping with Stoic self-improvement practices, are prepared to work on themselves and grow with the support provided to them. Seventh, those who absolve themselves from blame. The seventh profile addresses a core issue for Stoic philosophy: personal accountability. The Stoics believed we have the power to choose how we interpret and respond to the events that befall us. Succinctly captured in the famous quote by Epictetus, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." In the case of those who dodge taking responsibility for their actions, consistently shifting the blame to external factors or others, they're neglecting one of the most vital aspects of personal freedom and growth, which is the authorship of one's choices and the acceptance of their consequences. For Stoics, self-examination and self-criticism are crucial for character development and for living a good, meaningful life. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, stressed the importance of introspection and owning up to one's shortcomings and progress. In his meditations, he would question himself and recall the significance of examining his own actions and motivations. Rather than blaming others or circumstances, Stoic wisdom would suggest encouraging the person to engage in honest self-assessment, urging them to understand what is within their control, their own actions, reactions, and judgments. However, Stoics would also acknowledge that each individual must be willing to undertake this journey of self-discovery. It's not something that can be forced from the outside. Moreover, while we can offer support and perspective, the Stoics would remind us not to let ourselves be overly disturbed by others' failures or their refusal to change. We must accept that we do not control other people's actions, only our own. Change must come from within, and often suffering and hardship are the catalysts that lead people to introspection and the desire for change. Therefore, the harshness of learning from one's own experiences, mentioned in the text, could reflect the Stoic teachings that life's difficulties offer valuable opportunities for personal growth, and that sometimes the most effective learning comes through directly confronting the consequences of our own choices. Eighth, those with expectations of privilege. The expectation of unearned privilege contradicts the work ethic and the focus on self-development that are characteristic of Stoic philosophy. Stoics teach that an individual's worth doesn't come from innate privileges or expectations of special treatment, but from the cultivation of personal virtues such as wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. Epictetus emphasized that we should strive to be deserving of what we wish for, and that the sense of entitlement without corresponding effort is a delusion and a source of dissatisfaction. Marcus Aurelius, although an emperor, wrote about the importance of living in accordance with nature and not placing oneself above others, regardless of one's position. He often reflected on the impermanence of power positions and the importance of staying humble. For Stoics, the universe owes nothing to anyone. What happens to us is the result of a complex network of causes and effects, and genuine rewards come through virtuous actions and hard work, not unfounded expectations or demands. In dealing with people who have expectations of privilege, the Stoic approach would suggest first being an example of moderation and virtue-focused living, demonstrating through one's own actions the value of work and fair contribution. Furthermore, it would be advisable to encourage such individuals to reflect on their concepts of merit and justice, perhaps gently challenging them to consider what they truly deserve based on their actions, not their desires or expectations. Stoics would also advise avoiding negative emotional reactions to ingratitude or a sense of privilege in others, keeping in mind that everyone acts according to their understanding, and sometimes direct experience of the consequences of their unrealistic expectations may be the most profound lesson they can learn. Ninth, those resistant to learning and change. The Stoics viewed resistance to learning and change as significant impediments to moral and intellectual advancement. For them, wisdom was not merely a state to be attained, but a continuous process of personal evolution. Stoic philosophy encourages introspection, candid self-evaluation, and a readiness to adapt and learn from life's myriad experiences. Epictetus, one of the most illustrious Stoic philosophers, contended that we should be receptive to re-examining our beliefs and attitudes, as it is often these, not external events themselves, that lead us astray. He championed the idea that we should not fear self-correction, as true learning stems from the capacity to change and improve. Marcus Aurelius also wrote about the importance of being open to novel ideas and perspectives, and not being obstinate in one's own opinions. To deal with those resistant to learning and change, the Stoic approach would not be to force transformation, but to lead by example through one's own behavior. Additionally, Stoics would suggest practicing empathy, endeavoring to understand why these individuals cling to certain beliefs or behaviors, and approaching discussions about change in a manner that respects their perspective. However, Stoic philosophy also recognizes that there are things beyond our control, including the attitudes and choices of others. Therefore, it may be appropriate to accept that, despite our best efforts, some people may need to come to knowledge and the willingness to change on their own paths and timelines. This doesn't mean giving up on them, but rather respecting their journey and being available to assist when they are open to change. And as a good Stoic might say, worry less about convincing others to change and more about being an example of positive change. Want to find out how to achieve this? Take a look at the pinned comment. There's an exceptional ebook there that will elevate you, making you see everything in a different light. I'll see you in the next video. Stay with the Creator.